Well, hello, it's Claire Obermarck here from Storytelling Sedona. The green bottle that you can see in front of me has actually been on an incredible journey. It was gifted to me about 15 years ago now by my godfather, my Uncle Nigel, who lives down in Swindon in Wiltshire, in the south of England. And he found this bottle along the side of the canal there. But because it said Leeds on it, and it was quite a funky looking green bottle, he gave it to me. Now it says Bloomsbury Works Leeds, and on the other side it says Coffee and Chicory, but it doesn't say the year, and the top's broken, and it was broken when he found it. But I just love it. So it's been to Leeds, then it found its way all the way down through the water to Wiltshire, and then it went back to Leeds with me, and then it went to Scotland, and now it's in America, in Arizona. So I love this bottle, and I do take it with me when I move. And he also gifted a St. Christopher to me, which is probably the oldest possession that I own, the great protector of children. So these are two lovely things that help remind me of my Uncle Nigel. And the canal that he found it on, when they built the canals down there in 1810 and then 1819, it really helped the population, and it stopped people having to go through the Thames on the waterways. Swindon goes into the Domesday Book as a mention as a very small place, I guess big enough to go in the Domesday Book, but by the 1800s it had reached a population of just under 2,000, so it was, a bustling kind of place by all accounts then. And I wanted to give you a story today about a bottle, and it comes from Wiltshire. Now the funny thing about this story is that every town and village in Wiltshire thinks it comes from there. Anywhere where there's a lake or a pond, people say, oh, that's where this story comes from. And it's a story called the Moonrakers. In the 1800s, there was lots of contraband, and the customs and excise men were really feared and hated, and they went all over trying to catch people with contraband. And there was a group of men who had got a load of contraband brandy, and they'd brought it over from Orchiston, and they were in Devizes, which is in Wiltshire, and they heard that the customs and excise men were looking for them. So they got all these bottles of brandy and they tarred them to protect them, and they put them in the water in the pond, and they left it there for a couple of days until they thought that the customs and excise men had gone and left the area. And when they thought they'd gone and they were safe, they went back and they took agricultural rakes and went into the water to try and hook and drag back up the bottles, which should have been safely at the bottom. But the customs and excise men had lied. They were still around and they were watching out for these men, and they appeared all of a sudden. And it was a moonlit night, it was a full moon. And they said, it's a bit late for you fellas to be out, and shouldn't you be, in the pub in a lock-in or in your beds? What are you doing? Well, at that time, the people in and around the West Country were called yokels. And because they had a West Country accent, they thought, people used to think that they were stupid, when actually they're not stupid, but they just associated that accent with, it wasn't a posh accent, so it was a country accent. And one of the men thought very quickly, and he played upon this, and he said to the customs and excise men, "Here, no, we're not. We're trying to get that great big piece of cheese out of the water there," because the reflection of the full moon was shining on the water. So he got his rake and he tried to rake the moon from the surface of the pond. Well, the customs and excise men thought this was hilarious, and they thought, oh, these yokels, they're just crazy. Anyway, they laughed and they just left them to it. And as soon as they were round the corner and out of sight, the yokels, they raked up a bit more than cheese or the moon. They raked up all their brandy, and a fine time they had. But since then, that's where the term moonrakers has been used. Obviously, you might have heard of the film Moonraker. But every village and every town says that's where that story happened. And who knows where it happened? Maybe it happened here too. And thinking about water and rivers and lakes, I want to take us now to a poem about a lake. And it's really about a memory that I have of a cousin of mine who has a great knowledge of the natural world and taught me a great deal, even though he was younger than me. And we'd play out in the days where you could play out, and we'd play at the lake. Cousin Liam darts about, the hoverflies, dragonflies delight, under the shade of the willow, drinking the dark green pool. We reserve temptation to swim and stay clear of those fishermen whose silence preempts a warning. We are children, after all. Cool then warm the circle, the lake so huge and lush, to walk around a milestone in a summer that won't budge, Indian in its making, with plants that speak to us. Nature is its own and ours for the taking, at Bassett Lake, near Swindon. And I later found out that Bassett Lake is a man-made lake, but to me as a little girl it just seemed huge, you know. It's not that huge, it's a good size, and it's lovely now because it's really settled into itself. But yeah, it was a great place to play out and wander around and get to watch all the hoverflies and the birds and find out what the plants and the trees were. And you know, it was a great education playing out around the lake. So that's what I wanted to finish on, this old green bottle from the canal and a poem about the lake that I knew so well. Well, goodbye from Storytelling Sedona for today. We'll do another series of stories, but that's the last one of our water tales, I think, or one of the last ones. Just a few more. Take care. Bye-bye.